Even more announcements just keep slamming our way. We had all of the Vampire Coast roster reveal. We had each and every one of the Vampire Coast legendary lords revealed. We have the Everchosen happening this weekend. That's at 3 p.m. BST for those of you guys that want to watch it. Of course you do. And now today we have another new announcement. Lokhir Fellheart and then all of the vampire counts having a lovely set of reworks done to them. So let's dive in here. This is going to be a little bit quicker of a video. I do have to get ready to jump on a plane to go out to England, so I apologize ahead of time, guys, if anything kind of seems shoddy or anything like that, but I definitely wanted to get this news out to you guys because it's so important to us as a community, and it's to you vampire count players, and to me as a purveyor of content that is spooky themed. So let's talk about, the obvious big one here, Lokhir Fellheart. He is going to be coming to us. We talked about this in our potential lord video for a possible FLC lord between Lokhir and Malice Darkblade. I am a little sad to not see Malice Darkblade in the roster, and hopefully that just means that they're holding him hostage, I guess you could say, for some future stuff. But for now, it looks like Lokhir Fellheart will be our FLC lord for the Curse of the Vampire Coast DLC. And honestly, I'm kind of okay with that, though, if I kind of think about it, because if this DLC is very focused on the ocean and applying the trade of piracy and infamy, it makes a lot of sense that Lokhir Fellheart is here. Hopefully we've gotten a full new revamp with all of the actual what's those things called, black arcs, so that those are a little bit more robust in the battlefield, or at least just better overall, because they were just so shit to begin with. So hopefully they've gotten a nice little overhaul as well, along with Lokhir Fellheart. We don't know if he has any kind of special mounts or anything like that, but we did get that kind of cool reveal from him, and he's got his awesome twin swords. If you guys have not seen the video on Lokhir Fellheart, I'll link that at the end here that I did, so you can see the lore on them. His swords actually have a really, really cool lore. They're basically made from I think it's like the sword of someone who it's Ind Bloodsteel, I think it was the name of it. But either way, it's got a really cool lore behind it, so definitely check that video out if you want to hear just strictly the lore of Lokhir himself. But one big thing that I'm so stoked for, or the biggest thing I think I'm stoked for the Curse of Vampire Coast, aside from the units and everything like that and the new campaign, is the addition of Bloodlines. So finally we're going to get the Bloodlines that I love so much. One of my earliest videos was actually on the Vampire Bloodlines. And I mean, we all know how much of a huge fan I am of the blood dragons. We have the Lamians, the Von Karstein, the Neckarch, the Strigoi. All of them are going to finally be accessible to the vampire counts. And they're going to be accessible through some interesting mechanics. Let's kind of jump through some of the overall notes of some of the vampire count changes here. So we know that the Army of the Cairns is going to be added into the game. And the Army of the Cairns is a fluff army, I guess you could say, that was in White Dwarf 309 to 311. It was basically a Vampire Counts or Tomb Kings kind of faction with Kemmler, Krell, and a Shadow Druid was kind of a cool addition to it. But it's actually a pretty old reference to a very old portion of the lore, like I was saying. It's that army was called the Army of the Cairns. So Kemmler's Barrows, I think was the name of it, or something like that. But either way, Kemmler's Barrow Legion will borrow from the Army of the Cairns, that old white dwarf, and he'll be nestled in none other than the Castle of Drachenfels. Now, Drachenfels, that video will be coming out here early next week when I get back from England. But Drachenfels was kind of the consummate villain of the Warhammer world. Back when Warhammer 2nd edition was very much like Dungeons and Dragons. And in that time, you had these kind of dungeon delving kind of scenarios and stories. Some of the early prototypes of Warhammer Fantasy is actually in a game called Hero Quest. I had that actually playing up and didn't realize it until I got into Warhammer Fantasy and said, this Chaos Warrior looks a lot like the Hero Quest Chaos Warrior. Then I found it was the same world. But Drachenfels, Castle Drachenfels was the home of Arch Necromancer, whichever you want to call it, Constant Drachenfels. And he's kind of like come and gone throughout the lore. He's actually in the End Times as the Nameless. So in that lore video, we'll talk about his deep history, how he kind of comes and goes throughout the lore, and how he kind of has this almost like Sith Lord level quality about him. It's very kind of funny. Like, he kind of resurrects himself and such. So he's like Proto-Nagash, before Nagash was Nagash. He's one of the oldest references to any kind of evil in the Warhammer world. And it talks about him kind of almost being like evil Tom Bombadil. He was there before time was time type thing, before the old ones. That's the kind of general gist of his lore. But Castle Drakenfels is where Kemmler will be housed, and it's a pretty beastly landmark here, right? Like, Arch Necromancer Constant Drakenfels once imprisoned his victims within these crypts, so they could be tortured at his leisure. This is from the stream that Rich and Dogbert did. This is where all this information comes from. It's actually compiled very nicely on the Reddit by Weaponmaster470. He's the one of the librarians on our on Turn and I's joint Discord. He kind of is. He knows a lot about just a lot of like the White Dwarf articles and stuff like that kind of slips between the cracks, I think, by other lore masters. And he's just kind of like that ultimate catch-all. So he kind of brought this to my attention when I was balls deep in work today. But we have a lot of stuff going on here. So the Castle Drakenfels itself allows you to recruit necromancers, increases public order, research rate by 6%, allows you to have more necromancers and increases their rank. Also vastly increases corruption and allows you to have Cairn wraiths on your garrison. And this is just like a tier 2 building in the Kemmler's Barrow Legion. So you get access to this right off the gate because you know that this is going to be right by Carrick Ziflin. So the army of Cairns is going to start very close to Bretonnia. And so that means that we're going to have a chance for Kemmler to kind of unite with Musion, kind of creating at least a vampire count's presence in the western portion of the old world. So that's going to be very interesting. I have a new follower, the Ravenous Dead, providing bonuses to zombies unique to Kemmler himself. And Kemmler himself gets some little overhauls, voiceovers and stuff like that. But one of the coolest things here is the von Karstein bloodline actually adds Sylvanian crossbowmen and gunners. So I don't think we actually saw anything about them outside of the fact that that's what the bloodline adds. But Rich himself confirmed that the Necrarch that we saw during the during the stream is not a custom asset. It's not any kind of custom model. It's just kind of repurposed Vampire Lord Necromancer assets. Same thing with the Blood Dragon and so on and so forth. So I'm okay with that. He did say that the Red Duke is also not playable. And if you want to know about the Red Duke lore, you should just hang tight till tomorrow. I swear to God, there's a video coming out by me. So we'll have some more on that. But the Bloodlines are broken up into kind of 3 levels. You get these, it's a new currency, I guess you could say, that's called Blood Kisses. And it's when you write a cheesy Valentine on a card and you hand it to someone and it says circle yes or no for if you like me. I mean, no. You get the Blood Kisses from killing faction leaders, vassalizing, and successfully wounding or assassinating opposing heroes. So it's a really great way to encourage aggression in the vampire counts as a whole, which they do need. They need that aggression because the more aggressive you are playing a vampire counts campaign, the more likely you are to summon more and bigger armies and have access to more and more units. So aggression is highly favored. So we have 3 levels, I guess you could say. There's the Lamian Forbidden Dark Arts, the von Karstein, Blood Dragon, Necrarch, and Strigoi, all Forbidden Dark Arts. And you basically, each one of these costs Blood Kisses to awaken. It looks like the very first one costs 3. The next one seems to cost 6, if I'm looking at this picture correctly. So I'm going to assume the last one costs like 9 or 12 or some multiple of 3 or something like that. But let's take a look here. So the Lamian vampires give you, if I'm looking at all 3 of their levels, level 1 is Vigor Loss Reduction Medium, upkeep minus 50% for all heroes, and campaign line of sight plus 150% for their level 3. Von Karstein, and each one of these has a focus. So Lamian's Lord's focus is Master Infiltrator. Von Karstein Lord's focus is the Puppet Master. And they have a casualty replenishment rate of plus 20% on rank 1. Rank 2 is Public Order plus 5. And it looks like rank 3 is a joint access to Sylvania crossbowmen and handgunners, which would be pretty interesting. I'm wondering if they added that because they created the assets for Vampire Coast. And like, well, let's just kind of push this over to Vampire Counts. We don't see much in the way of Sylvanian units in the lore, so it's actually kind of cool to see these kind of being represented one way or another. And I'm curious to see if they're going to be undead, if they're just going to be human Empire units. I believe they said so in the stream. I unfortunately didn't catch it 100% to see if they did say that. So feel free to comment below and correct me. So the Blood Dragon vampires, Lord focus, military commander and being total absolute badasses in the lore, given. Rank 1 for them, immune to untainted attrition, which is huge. It's so hard to push in to Vampire Count's territory if you're not a vampire, and it's so hard to push out if you're untainted, depending on the scenario. So that's awesome to see. Weapon strength plus 10% for cavalry units whenever there is on the rank 2, and then rank 3 is plus 1 XP for all units. So that's pretty gnarly. It looks like we'll also be getting a rework of the red tree for the vampires. I think there's some reduction of cost for Blood Dragon vampires. I'm sorry, for the Blood Knights. I think it's like a 50% reduction or something like that, I think I saw, but you are a whole redline rework for the Blood Dragons. Now the Neckarchs here are your supreme wizards. Remember in the lore, these guys can become level 5 wizards in Warhammer Fantasy. So level 1 for them, wins of magic starting amount plus 20, research rate plus 25%, and then lastly their third awaken, I guess you could call it, is upkeep minus 10% for all units, which is pretty damn. Now the Strigoi is the Lord Focus of a bestial juggernaut. A public order minus 60% penalty due to presence or lack of corruption, and ambush success chance plus 20%, with vampire corruption plus 5 as their very last one. God, I'm dying. So I thought that was actually going to include some bonuses to ghouls, because that's kind of the Strigoi's mindset and build is a Strigoi Ghoul King. He's got ghouls under hand. He's got Vargeists. He's got Crypt Horrors. All these kind of things that kind of fall in line with him. So we'll kind of see how that works itself out and how it kind of plays out throughout the rest of these kind of reveals, I guess you could say. Now, we did get some other initial kind of, I guess you could say, minor announcements. These are more in line with the stuff that Andy Hall talked about when he came onto the stream after Rich and Dogbert left. I guess there was something about, I'm reading some of the notes here, but it looks like he mentioned something about dogs, not Dogs of War directly, but he said that the chat's barking up the wrong tree. And he said something about the Dogs of War, but we love all the factions. We'll see what we can do. So maybe that's a hint of them coming. Who rightfully knows? I'm not going to get too much into speculation on that because it's dangerous territory. But we'll be getting an ebook on Direfin's lore coming out the end of this week, so hopefully we'll be able to find out how she is the way she is. A lot of people have kind of rumored, is she kind of part of Stromfels? Is she part of Manon? And we have that Manon video coming out here later this week, and Stromfels early in the next week, so be on the lookout for that. Vangeist will be included as a spell, it looks like. There's my lovely USB. So Vangeist himself will, his Shade Wraith, his boat will be a ghost ship. That's the ghost ship that broadsides the Bretonnians during the preview. And Drekla will also have a cameo as a follower of Harkon, which is pretty cool. Drekla was his right hand, his first mate on his ship, on the Bloody Reaver, as it were. Or that's not Bloody Reaver. It's the Count Noctilus. My bad. But one thing though that I want to talk about, and before we close out this video, is Ernest Saltspite, and how they're kind of saying that what her motivation is for being a vampire and not for being human. Well, they're saying that Mana told Ernesta to just go take over the ocean, and she wanted tougher, more permanent crew members, so she made a pact with vampires. And in addition to that, they emphasized a portion of the lore, a distant known one called Beyond the Maelstrom. It's a supplement for the Dread Fleet that came out. And part of it is called Blood in the Water. And that's one of these are basically like special additional rules to Dreadfleet once you've kind of beaten it a bunch of times. So it's an alternate kind of subplot. So let's read this portion right here. If you're using the Blood in the Water rule, something dire happens to Captain Saltspite when she is held as the captive in the Citadel in Scenario 2. She receives the Dark Kiss, or Blood Kiss, and is turned into a vampire. Though she manages to resist the curse at first, every time she tastes blood in the air, her will is eroded away a little more until she becomes a fully fledged member of the undead. At this point, she changes allegiance to join Count Noctilus. So that's really fucking cool. So if we're looking at Beyond the Maelstrom as our point, and we're saying that this has happened after Scenario 2, which it has, because Count Noctilus is technically has come back at this point. At the end of Dreadfleet, Drago, or whatever his name is, kills him. Captain Roth kills him, and he's gone. But we see Count Noctilus back here with his sundial, Drago Roth. So that means that he's obviously, it's after the events of Dreadfleet. That means that Aranessa is full well included into, or inducted into becoming a vampire. So that would make sense if we're looking at this beyond the Maelstrom subplot that was created so long ago. And it's actually an official Games Workshop thing. It's not just like a, hey, here's what I hope happened. So that kind of sums it up here today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was a little bit rushed, but hopefully some of the pictures and stuff like that kind of helped you get a better idea of what's coming out for the Vampire Counts, for the Vampire Coast, and some more cool reveals. Don't forget to check out the Everchosen Halloween Invitational, I think we're calling it, coming out here Saturday and Sunday, streamed on Twitch, or Total War Official on their Twitch channel. You can see Turin and myself, Janet on occasion, and Dogbert all leading the charge as we do another session of the Everchosen. But as always, guys, thanks so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.